Fusion summoning has gotten a lot better throughout the years, and this deck sort of takes the best of the fusion monsters out there and puts it all together in one deck. So what is up, guys? This is tcgsam here, and in today's video I'm coming at you guys with a branded Chimera Shaddoll test hand video. So if you haven't checked out the deck profile, I highly recommend doing so. It's already up on my channel. You'll be able to learn about the different ratios of the cards I'm playing and sort of the extra synergies that the cards have with each other. So with all that being said, we're going to finish shuffling up and hop into our very first test hand, and that's going to be a copy of Falco, Branded Fusion, Shaddoll Fusion, Squamata, and a Book of Moon. So this is a very good hand in this deck because we have access to all three engines, and even though it doesn't really look like it with Branded Fusion, what we can do is just start off with that Branded Fusion, and we can get access to our Chimera engine by simply dumping the copy of the Gazelle and Albaz from our deck to the graveyard, and then summoning out a copy of Rinbrum. That's going to trigger the effect of Gazelle, because when Gazelle is sent to the graveyard as a material for a fusion summon, you get to add an illusion monster from your deck to your hand. So very simply, we are just going to go ahead and add a copy of Cornfield Kotal. Discard the Cornfield Kotal, search out the Mirror Sword Knight, normal summon the Mirror Sword Knight, activate the Mirror Sword Knight effect, and that is going to go ahead and special summon out a copy of the Big Wing Berfomet, and then activate the Berfomet effect here. And then if at any point our opponent has like an imperm or something, we do have Book of Moon to protect the Big Wing Berfomet, meaning that this is just guaranteed to go through. So we are going to add the copy of Chimera Fusion and add the copy of Gazelle from our deck to our hand. And then what we can do from here is very simply just activate the Chimera Fusion, fusing away the Gazelle and the Big Wing Berfomet for a copy of our Chimera, the King of Phantom Beast. That's going to trigger the effect of Chainlink 1 Berfomet and Chainlink 2 Beast. Beast is going to rip one from our opponent's hand during the end phase, and then Berfomet brings back Mirror Swords Knight. So, like I mentioned in the deck profile, the Mirror Swords Knight being on the board is actually very good because now we have access to the Shaddoll aspect of our deck, which is just kind of crazy to think about because we have access to all of our engines rolling, and all of them just generate so much. Because next what we can do is activate the Shaddoll Fusion, fusing away the Mirror Swords Knight and the Shaddoll Squamata for a copy of El Shaddoll Construct. That's going to trigger the effect of both Construct and of Squamata, and then from there we're going to be able to foolish any two Shaddoll cards that we want. I think the two Shaddoll cards I would personally go with are Shaddoll Schism and Wendy. Or you could go El Shaddoll Fusion if you prefer. I just like getting Schism into rotation a lot earlier, so I chose to go with Schism. That's going to trigger the Wendy to special any Shaddoll monster directly from our deck and face down defense. And I think I'm just going to go with Squamata because that gives us the most flexibility to fuse on our opponent's turn. And then, before we go any further, we're going to activate the Chimera Fusion to add it back to our hand since we do control the Chimera, the King of Phantom Beast. And then from here, very simply, we can just set our two cards and pass things over to our opponent, which I know this is going to seem kind of like a funky end board, but we actually have a lot of setup here. We're going to rip one from our opponent's hand during the end phase off of Chimera, so they're already down to starting with 5 cards. We have access to quite a lot on our opponent's turn. We have the Rinbrum negation, so what we can do is just negate something and then return something on the field to the hand, which is nice. And the crazy part is, as soon as our construct gets outed or we fuse with it, we grab insane follow-up with the Shaddoll Schism or the Shaddoll Fusion from our graveyard. Not to mention, we have cards like Cornfield in our graveyard and Mirror Swords Knight, meaning we have a monster negate on the field, and we have access to targeting protection in the graveyard. So as soon as we make something, like for just as a quick example, what we could do is turn these, for example, into Guardian Chimera on our opponent's turn. So we're going to pop cards, draw cards, we're going to trigger both their effects to chain block it and grab follow-up. And then it's just honestly so incredible how much we can do with the board that we have here. It also doesn't lose to a card like Dark Ruler no more, and also doesn't lose to cards like Book of Moon or Book of Eclipse that are very common out in the format, just because of how strong fusing in this deck is and how many effects it can trigger. So that's going to do it for the very first test hand, so let's shuffle up and get into our next one. So moving on to the next test hand, we're going to be showing some of the things this deck can do when going second. Now, I'm not going to be showing what it's going to do versus a specific board, but rather just talk about some of the things that this deck can do when going second, because it has quite a few different options out there and can actually OTK your opponent as well, which is a very nice feature. So let's finish shuffling up and getting to our going second test hand. We're going to start things off with El Shaddoll Fusion, Shaddoll Dragon, Shaddoll Hedgehog, Book of Moon, Gazelle, and then draw for turn Brand Infusion. So also a very strong hand once again. Let's say we trade with one of our opponent's things with Book of Moon, and then from here we have a couple of different options. What I would personally try to do is save Brand Infusion for last, since we have access to our Chimera engine already, and they use this as a big bomb and blowout card. We can at least drop a Mirror Jade at the very end, and that'll be very difficult for our opponent to deal with most of the time. So what we can do is start by normal summoning the Gazelle, activating the Gazelle effect. We can go ahead and add a copy of the Big Wing Baphomet or the Chimera Fusion. I think personally here I would just go for the Chimera Fusion. And the reason why we're doing that is because we actually are just going second. We're trying to push through our opponent's board. So activating Chimera Fusion right now demands a lot of respect from our opponent. They're going to have to either negate this or do something else to it, because we just threatened Guardian Chimera right now. And of course, we're going to be able to chain block the Chimera, because we can just fuse these three away, go into Chimera, activate the effects of Chimera, Hedgehog, Dragon, and Gazelle, which is kind of crazy to think about. We're going to activate all their effects, activate the effect of Search, pop a spell or trap, and then Gazelle will add any illusion monster from our deck to our hand. So that's going to be grabbing Cornfield Kotal. The effect of the Hedgehog is going to trigger, and that's going to grab us a copy of Shaddoll Wendy. And then from there, we are going to be able to pop one of our opponent's spell and traps with the Dragon. And then afterwards, we're going to be able to draw 2, then pop 1 with Guardian Chimera, since we did use 2 from hand and 1 from field. We're going to end up drawing Cornfield and Eclipse, pop one of our opponent's cards, and now they're down 2 cards while we have so many in our hand. What we can do next is activate the Cornfield. Cornfield is just going to be able to add us anything that lists the Chimera Fusion. So from here, what we can do is either add the Big Wing Baphomet or add the Mirror Swords Knight. I'm going to go ahead and add the Swords Knight because this gives us access to the Shaddoll part of our deck. And then it's also very important to note that we actually haven't been Fusion Summon locked just yet, since we didn't use Baphomet's effect on the field, meaning that we're still going to be able to do a cool play with the Shaddoll Fusion, where we fuse away the Wendy and the Swords Knight, go into a construct in the extra monster zone, trigger the construct and the Wendy effect. So Wendy will just special summon out a copy of Squamata, and then let's say your opponent has a monster from the extra deck still on the board, you can dump Shaddoll Fusion, link this off, resolve Shaddoll Fusion from deck, which is very good. Or just very simply, if that's just not something you need to do, what you can do is just very simply dump the Shaddoll Schism, and then next time when you fuse away with it, you have follow-up. And then at this point, very simply, if you just go Brand Infusion, you just have game, because no matter what you summon, this is just going to be enough bodies on the board, especially after Mirror Jade banishes one from our opponent's field. So you can see that going second, this deck has a couple of options as well. You're able to use cards like Guardian Chimera very aggressively. You have a lot of big blowout cards in the Shaddoll engine when going second, because you get cards like Dragon and Shaddoll Fusion effects, which is just really nice. So that's going to do it for this test hand video. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment section below. Let me know if you enjoyed it, and if you did, please do remember to subscribe to the channel, because only a very small percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed right now, and it would greatly help the channel grow and keep me motivated to keep posting more videos like this. But with all that being said, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.